Hey friends, happy Wednesday to all of you. I'm very excited to be starting our 12 Days of Christmas in July series. If you're new around here, welcome. I hope you will consider hitting that subscribe button to join our crafty little family. We have so many festive holiday projects planned, and we're kicking off day one with a paper bag album, but this is not just any paper bag album. I've been having so much fun showing how versatile they can be by making simple changes, and this is the best one yet to make. It is fast and easy, and the change we make today will surprise you and knock your socks off. So stick with me and we'll make it together. And don't forget to watch to the end for the question of the day. For today's project, I'm going to be working with this My Favorite Christmas collection from Echo Park, and I'm going to use this 6x6 paper pad along with the 12x12 collection pack. For all of my projects during this series, they are available, and I will find links for you in the description below. This particular one came from my stash from last year, but I did find it on Amazon. It was about the same price as scrapbook.com, but you can enjoy free shipping and also faster shipping. So that's something to keep in mind looking there as well. I'm also going to be using those paper bags that I have shared in our previous paper bag albums. Those also came from Amazon, and I'll link them as well. This is a really nice size. It was bigger than what I was expecting, but it turned out to be really perfect. And for this particular album, we're going to do something that's a little bit crazy. We're going to cut the whole bottom off, and that makes no sense except that it will help to prevent a little bit of the bulk on the inside and keep all the pockets going in the same direction, and I really think that works pretty well for an album that is fast and easy to make. So the first thing I want to do is just fold over that entire bottom flap, and I'm just pressing it right along the bottom, and I'm going to use my guillotine paper cutter here so that I can line it at the top and keep everything nice and square. This particular bag was manufactured pretty well. Sometimes they're very uneven, but this one, it seems to be very consistent, and that makes it nice to craft with. So I'm going to bring this over to the blade and slide that whole pocket underneath, and I'll just go ahead and cut it right under where that pocket was. And then I'm going to flip this around and measure it right on up to 9 1/4. This is going to give us 2 pages that are 4.5 inches and then 1/4 of an inch on the inside. So let's switch to our scoreboard, and I'm going to line that up at the top as you do. And my first score line is going to be at 4.5. You can go over this a few times just to reinforce that crease, but don't go too far in because you don't want to cut through that paper. The second score line is going to be at 4 3/4. So now we're going to have those 2 full-size pages and then room in the middle for all of the paper layering that we want to add. So now you want to just come in and crease that on your score line. I like to fold that over and line it up right at the bottom so you know everything is nice and even, and do that for both sides. This is going to be one of the sections. We're going to add 2 sections, but how we include it in the cover will actually give us 3 sections. So here is the paper bag. It's all ready to be added to the cover. So our book base is going to consist of 4 different parts. We have those 2 sections that we just created. I've got full-size flip pages, a very sturdy, thick cardstock cover, and then some inserts so that we can fill in those pockets. So the first thing you want to do is create that sturdy cover for your inserts, and this is 110-pound cardstock. It is cut to be 6 1/8 by 9 3/4, and these measurements will work for those Amazon bags. If you find regular lunch bags, you can just adjust those measurements and this will work the same. So first thing I want to do is have my adhesive. This is my double-sided tape on the side all the way around, and I'm going to come in with my Tombow as well because you want this to be very sturdy. the tech hubby said that I should call this the Two Glue Crew and sell some merch, which I think is pretty funny. So the first thing I want to do is add these to the outsides of my cover, and then I'll bring my scoreboard back in and give us some nice crisp crease lines, which will be very nice on our finished book. So what we want to do is have our pockets facing out so we can fill this up when we get it assembled. And the hardest part, as always, is keeping your fingers out of the glue. So I'm just going to line that right on up the side and the bottom so that I keep it nice and square. And then I'll just go ahead and fold that over right along our first crease line. And you'll notice that I have added just a little bit of extra tape here as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing for this side, as we already put our glue on, and line that up right along the bottom and the side. So I'll just go ahead and fold this over and give it a little bit of pressure so that it will set up, and that tape will help to hold it in place while the glue sets up. I've got my tape on both sides of these sections. That's the 1/4 of an inch part that we created on the scoreboard. I want to bring that scoreboard back in and I'll just line that up along one of the grooves in the scoreboard and go ahead and make my crease there. This will help to give a nice shape to the spine. And because I'm right-handed, I think it will just be easier to flip that over and work from this side again. It doesn't matter where it falls on your scoreboard. You're just making that crease right along the edge of the score mark on your lunch bag. So I'll just go ahead and give that a good crease right now on both sides. Flip that over and crease it. And now you're gonna have a good square back with crisp lines. I'm gonna just remove my scoreboard here. Then I'm gonna come in and take the tape off of one side first and add a little bit more of that glue. You want to be careful not to add too much right now so that it doesn't splooge out and make a mess. Then I found it easier to fold my book over onto it and then go ahead and press that into place while that glue sets up. So you get a nice sturdy back. And you want to do that on both sides. So I'll just take the tape off of here as well. A little bit more glue. And then press that over. You could probably put a book on here now and weight that down and continue to work along, but we're just going to come back in when this is ready to be worked on. So our glue is all set up and we can continue to work along. I'm just gonna push this over so that it goes back into shape. And you can see that we have 3 separate sections now, and then we'll have our pockets on the end of the pages. The next thing I want to add are some flip pages, because this helps to increase the amount of space you have to finish your book, as well as add to the thickness and sturdiness. So now you want to bring in your 65-pound weight cardstock, and the measurement for this is 6 1/8 inches high by 9 inches wide and scored at 4 1/2. So these are going to be full-size flips, and I have cut 6 of them because you have those 2 sides of each of the 3 sections, and I like to position these so that they flip outward. And I'm not going to go for 2 glues on this. I think it will be fine with just my double-sided adhesive. And so this piece will go in here and open that way toward the left. So my next piece should go on this side, and that will open outward as well. And I can just line that up and keep everything nice and square and even. And I will have 2 full-size page flips here. So that's all for our base, and you can see that we have our 3 sections, each having the 2 full-size page flips as well as the pockets on the end that we can fill with inserts. So I'll go ahead and switch to the one I have already prepared, and we will finish it with our collection. So for this portion of finishing out our base, I will be sharing this with those full-size flip pages not added to the base, just so that we can refer back to that tutorial if we need to use it at a future date. But all of the measurements will stay the same, and we'll just add our collection papers to that folded flip page before we put it in the book. So I really wanted to use some of the larger cut apart pages. Those images are so sweet, and the best way to do that, I think, is either to create a pocket or to have flips. And so I decided to do that. We're going to have a small flip on a large flip, and that will help to bulk up our book and make it really nice and chunky. So what I decided to do is to cut out those 4x4 images as they are, and then we're going to back them with a layering pattern so that you get a nice variety of that collection. So the first thing I have is a piece of 65-pound weight cardstock. It is 4 inches high by 2 inches wide and scored at 1 inch. So this is just going to become the portion that flips out. And the first thing I want to do is add my focal image right along that score line into my double-sided adhesive. It is a good idea to start in the center and work out. That way, if you need to cut a little bit of this to correct for the cutting error, you will have that exactly on the side, and you can trim from the outside. It's much easier to do that. So here is our front of our flip with that extra cute Santa image, and then I will add my layering pattern onto the back, and keeping an eye on what direction my patterns are going. And I'll just go ahead and add that right along the score line again. So now I can add this to the patterned paper for the front of our full page flip. And I'll just go ahead and line that right up with the score line and press that into place. And you can see this portion will flip up, and we're going to add this to our full-size flip page. And so the measurement for this pattern paper is going to be 6 high by 4 3/8 wide. We're not going to use the cardstock border on the inside just to reduce a little bit of the bulk, and this will be centered on the front of our flip page. I'm just going to pull that closer a little bit so I can see better over top and get that centered. So here is the left-hand side of our first page. We have 1 flip and then an additional flip. I covered the inside of these with a layering pattern so that we could get a nice variety, and it is cut the same as on the outside. I have my second piece here, and I'll just go ahead and add my top layer. I like to have these match when they show. So I have 2 across on these sweet little reindeer, and then 4 across when they are on the inside. And that's just my personal preference, but you can mix and match them however much you like. So each of the 3 sections are going to have the same design on the inside, but I swapped out the paper pattern so that I could mix and match them. And so now is the time when I'm going to add these to our book. Now remember that we have already added our paper bag pockets, so I'm just going to add these here. While I am working along, I do want to thank everyone who left a comment on my previous video for the Tech Hubby to see I did share those comments with him, and he obliged us with some really fun and festive snow on the intro. So thanks to you guys and also to Tech Hubby for helping to make my intro very special this year. So as I'm working along, I'm just going to mix and match those papers, like I said, and add those 4x4 journal cards. And as I am working along, I do want to mention that I am still working out of that same pack of paper bags. So you can imagine just how far that pack will go. I think you're going to get a lot of fun variety out of it, and it will go a long way. So there is our last section all put together. I want to add the back on now. So for the back, I don't have to worry about the bulk of the paper quite so much, so I did decide to add that cardstock border, and the border for this on the outside is going to be 6 inches high by 4 3/8 inches wide. The pattern paper is 5 7/8 by 4 1/4, so that way you're going to get that nice layering borders of the base as well as that pretty green cardstock. And I want to finish the spine as well. So this piece does not have that green cardstock border just because the pieces were getting quite small. So I have this cut to be 6 inches wide by 5/8 inches tall. And that way we're gonna still get that nice border going all the way around. Okay, so that looks nice on the back and the side as well. This is the time you want to bring in your trim if you're going to use that as a closure, and I suggest doing that because once you start including things in these pockets, you want to make sure they're very secure. I'm going to go with this Willow stitched satin. This is from Really Reasonable Ribbon. I think this is an absolutely beautiful color for Christmas. It's very vintagey. It is still very bright and cheerful without being too vibrant. And so I'm just going to measure off the amount that I think I will need to tie a generous bow, and I'll cut that at an angle to help prevent it from fraying. I'll go back over that when we're finished and make sure these are trimmed to be exactly how I want them. And so I'm just going to center that in my book, and then I'll use a little hot glue to tack this into place. As you know, we do like to add dimensional covers, so this helps to keep everything lined up exactly. So I'm going to add that same beautiful green plaid on the front as I have on the back and the side, and I did go ahead and use that same beautiful green cardstock while I'm working along. I will mention that this is a very good project for using up those 6x6 paper pads. I know we all have them, and I tend to put them in a bin and enjoy looking at them, but I need to be better at using them. So this is a great way to do that. And then additional thing that you will get from that are these really fun offcut pieces, and they will be great layering patterns if you like to add those, and they will measure exactly. So you can mix and match as you work along and kind of add some layering to the inside of your book as well. So now that we have that front cover on, here's one of those offcuts like I mentioned, and I'm just going to add that right to the bottom here and give that an additional bit of detail. So I want to include my focal image over some additional layers. And the first one is going to be my doily, and this is cut from a nice crisp white cardstock so that I can neutralize just a bit of that background so my focal image will really pop out. And then I want to add another layer right along the edge, so like I mentioned, these will fit perfectly because they were cut right along with the page patterns. So I'm just going to add that using the same border on the outside so that I can keep that going all the way around the page. And now I'll bring in my focal image, and so this was part of one of the 4x6 cutter parts. It was pretty large, the whole background, and I knew I had to remove quite a lot of it, so I chose this tag shape. It has a nice stitch detail. I added an eyelet here and a little bit of twine, and I cropped this pretty close here along the edge, and you'll see why in just a minute, but this is up on spacers as well, and I normally would not overlap the edge, but I want to bring in my cut end all the way up to the side of that third layering pattern, and you'll see why that will work right when we get to it. So what I want to do now is add my charms, and I'm just going to position my floral arrangement right where I hope for it to land. I'm trying not to cover up those words or have too much overhanging along the outside because I want those pieces to become fragile. So this is the time I can add this underneath those layers. I just have a couple of little trees, and they are tied together with string so that I can keep them at the length that I want. I'm just going to secure those underneath the flowers with a little bit of hot glue. And then I'll remove the excess string here. So here is my flower arrangement. I have just one flower because this is a little bit of a smaller cover. If you're interested in how I put these together, I just did a quick tutorial with a lot of tips and techniques as my last video, and I will link that in the description below. But I just layered up some holiday shaped greenery with some netting and twine, and then one beautiful focal flower right for the center. And then I'm just going to go ahead and add that with my hot glue because it's a little bit heavy. I do want it to be very secure. I'm kind of working with that foliage a little bit so that I don't cover up any of those words. Okay, so that is our front cover, and then I did mention previously that we're going to be adding inserts, so I did cut 8 of these from 110-pound cardstock. They are 4 3/4 inches high by 5 3/4 inch wide, and I have used up pretty much all of my 6x6 paper pad to cover these. I didn't finish the back. This is a great place for your journaling or to add extra pictures. And so these will tuck into those side pockets, and that will help to protect the edge of our tag that overlaps. So the pattern paper for these is 4 5/8 by 5 5/8, and you can have 2 for each one of these sections. So remember, we folded them in half, so you're going to wind up with 4 sections, and you can put in 8 of the inserts. You will notice there is quite a lot of extra room here on the outside as well, so you can tuck in some additional flat keepsakes and mementos, or just pictures that you don't want to adhere to the book so that you don't have it glued down. So I'll just continue to fill up these pockets as I go along. And like I said, this is a great way to use up those smaller paper pads. Now look how nice and thick and chunky that's getting. This is going to be very heavy and very nice. And so I've got all of my inserts here, and they stick out just far enough to support that tag, but also they're easier to pull out if you don't have to dig into the pocket to find the edge. So use up all of your extra paper pads to fill in all of those inserts. Okay, let's give this a nice bow, and then we'll add a little bit of extra detail. I'm going to reclip those ends just to make sure that I have them at the length that I like. And then I did bring down some sequins, so let's go ahead and add those. I'll just put 3 on with a little bit of my Tombow. So that's all for day 1 of our Christmas in July series. Don't forget to come back tomorrow for day 2. If you enjoyed this tutorial, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Remember, you can find links in the description below. And now for the question of the day, besides home with your family, where would you like to enjoy the holiday season? For me, I think it would be one of those quaint Christmas markets in Europe. They have all of those warm and cozy drinks and tasty snacks and lots of artisans selling beautiful handmade items. So that is pretty ironic for me considering I dislike snow and cold, but I think that would just be a very fun and festive holiday experience. So let me know in the comments below where you would like to go. As always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day, and I thank you so much for watching. Bye!